Hi, my name is Stacey McLaren.
I'm John Beeson.
And this is God in the Gray, a place where we have conversations about religion, spirituality, all of the areas that we find God in the gray. We are so glad that you joined us. We consider this a conversation. Like, you've joined us out here on the patio in Tucson, Arizona, and we're just going to talk about all of these things. So we're so grateful that you joined us. Again, we are real people here in Tucson, Arizona at New Life Bible Fellowship, and we are happy to have this conversation with you. So, big news in the world of religion right now. Pope Francis recently passed away last month, and the cardinals have gone into what is called conclave to pray and consider who will be the next church leader of the Roman Catholics. There's a lot of prayer. It's a lot of pomp and circumstance, but there's some deeply spiritual moments for these cardinals, for the people of the Roman Catholic faith. So that's kind of where we are in this world of religion that it's globally impactful. What do you think about all of this?
Yeah, one of the things that it's had me thinking about is polity, which is not a very exciting word. You may well not know even what it means. Polity just means the way in which we organize church structure. And I think what's interesting about this is, as we talk about the idea of a pope, if you're Roman Catholic, you likely have like an affection for the pope. You're probably even drawn to that idea of someone who's the head of your church in that way. My hunch, though, is for most of us, there's an aversion to, a pushback against the idea of a single person in power. In fact, I think probably for many Americans, that's probably kind of just at our core. We're formed as an anti-monarchy people. And it trickles down in our religion as well. And I think for many of us, we kind of even think, like, we look at that idea of a pope, and we're like, well, good thing we don't have that, right? And I want to explore that a little bit, because my hunch is that there's probably some stuff in us, all of us, no matter where we come from, that's a little bit of a challenge, and maybe kind of the idea of having the Pope maybe exposes some of the realities of some of the tensions within us, and even the tensions that are embedded in our church leadership structures and decisions that we make.
Yeah, I think that polity is important, and we can go back and look at church history of just these organizations, the way they're set up, the Catholic Church, Church of England, all of this, again, going back and looking at church history, wars started over it. Kings were going against popes, were going against bishops. Many, many people died over really what is sin invading church leadership, right? When it becomes around that singularity, there seems to be pride certainly takes over, right? I want my way, and your way is wrong. And we can see that all across the board, not just Roman Catholics. We can see that in all sorts of different religions and denominations. So, when we look at it, the Roman Catholic Church, their idea of the Pope really came from Jesus's calling to Peter, "You are the rock, and the church will be built upon this rock." And so Roman Catholicism, they hold to this, there is one, a singular that the church is founded on, and therefore they kind of pass that down, and there is one leader of the entire church. Whereas in the Protestant world, we look at it as, you can see later on, Paul is admonishing to Timothy and Titus of, this is how your church is going to be set up. Like, it's going to be a multitude of leaders. You're going to have elders. You're going to have deacons. You're going to have these people that are around you, to where even if there is a one leader of the church, it's really a plurality of people that are leading the church. And there's a beauty in that. Now, I will say this, there's sin in both of those areas, right? And yet, the way we believe as Protestants is that plurality lessens the potential effect and destruction of sin in the church. It becomes less of an avalanche when there is this plurality of people to hold accountable other leaders.
Yeah, it's a tension, right? And so let's even go back to those texts, right? So you have, I get it, right? From the Roman Catholic perspective, you see what appears to be a very clear call that there's a singular leader who's the rock in which the church is built, and that's then a lineage that's passed on through. There's Protestant interpretations that would kind of argue that actually it's the declaration that he's the Christ that it's built on. But regardless, you understand why that is. And then you have this other stream of thought that's like, hey, listen, as Paul establishes these churches, as he sends out church planters, he says, hey, listen, the first thing you need to do is to look for elders. You need to look for a plurality of leaders that's held and doing that leadership together. And actually, I think this is maybe the most key piece that kind of bridges these two. As you look at it play out over Scripture, you see both of these two things converge in Acts 16, the council at Jerusalem, where you see Peter called into account for having anti-Gentile views. He won't eat with Gentiles. He's essentially forcing the gospel of Jesus Christ to remain in an old wineskin, in the Jewish wineskin. Hey, this is really just for Jews, and it's going to stay in the same Jewish husk that it was delivered in, and Peter's called to account. He's called to account by Paul, by others, and he submits to the council there. And I would say this is where it becomes key, is that no matter the polity you have, that idea of submission has to be key for any biblical leader. It has to be. Like, you go to Ephesians 4, Ephesians 5. As you play out what does the church actually look like, core to that is this idea that we must submit to one another. And so I think at the heart of this question has to be this question. No matter what kind of leadership structure your church has, is your leader actually submitting? Because Protestants, evangelicals, I would warn you that there are many fiefdoms out there where you have senior pastors, lead pastors who are leading fiefdoms without any submission. And that's a dangerous thing. You can look out and you can look at the Roman Catholic Church and you say, oh, well, glad we don't have that. Glad we don't have one head of our religion. Well, but are you not actually replicating that functionally within your own congregations in a place in which you have fiefdoms, you have a leader who is not submitting? Biblical leadership must submit. Biblical leadership must have places in which you meet this place of, oh goodness, we have two different ideas. We have two different thoughts about where this goes. And biblical leadership must come to those places and in understanding, in wisdom, in humility, submit to another group. And I think that is the core of what biblical leadership looks like. Whether you're Protestant or Roman Catholic, do your leaders actually submit?
That's so good. Because ultimately, how your leader submits, how he is leading in that submission act, is how he's going to teach you, how you're going to learn by watching. And we're called to do that with one another. We're called to do that in marriage. We're called to do that in family. So, I mean, you want your example to be doing what he's telling you to do, right? So I think one thing that's really tugging at my heart too is I want to say, whether we're Roman Catholic or whether we're Protestant, this is not a us versus them. There is a difference in polity and there's some theological differences clearly. But this should never be a battle between denominations. There are good Christ-believing Catholics, there are good Christ-believing I was going to say Presbyterians. Nope, Protestants. Yes, and Presbyterian. But just like recognize that these are not areas to battle over. That was kind of one point that I wanted to say. And then recognize, like, you might be thinking, how do I know if I'm in a church that is running correctly? How do I know this? Well, this isn't a 1-week visit kind of figure it out. This isn't a read the About Us page on the website and be certain that that's what's going on. They may be outlining that. Certainly our website outlines the way we believe. You can see the humility in our structure. But it's going to take a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months to figure out, no, how does the leadership of this church work? Can I access a pastor? Can I access an elder and ask, how does this work? What happens if there's a problem? That's key. It is so key. You can see humility or lack thereof will eventually start to surface. And it doesn't take long for you to see pride start to bubble up to the surface in the polity. I think it takes time to watch and see how a church's structure operates, and that's okay. We are so used to everything being an instant gratification process. But just know, if you're looking for a church, it's not about denomination. Like, you can be in any one denomination and have one church that has full submissive polity and another church that, like you said, is a fiefdom.
Yeah. It's interesting. So one of the markers of a Protestant church is that we believe that the Bible is authoritative, right? The irony, though, is in some Protestant churches, some evangelical churches, what ends up happening is that there becomes one interpreter, one authoritative interpreter of that scripture, the senior pastor, the lead pastor. And I would just say, be careful, right? Like, walk into places not with an air of suspicion, but just with an invitation to ask the question and to say, hey, what are the structures that are fostering health? Because, polity sounds like a dry and crusty idea, but I think of it as like a trellis, right? Like, we have a jasmine that grows in our backyard and it grows on a trellis because the jasmine itself can't support itself. Polity itself is not the end. It's not the goal. If nobody should be super excited that my church has the best polity, but to the end that it's a structure in which healthy character, healthy fruits of the Spirit are demonstrated and exhibited in a local church, like, that's to be celebrated. And my prayer, my hope is that more and more churches thoughtfully think through these things such that the character of leaders is formed, is developed, is grown, is sanctified in the context of a healthy polity.
So good. It's a great conversation. And again, as we are in this period of time where this conclave is going on, like, there is plenty of opportunities for great conversations around not only church history, but the way maybe your church operates, the way you might be called to actually enter a church for the first time in a long season. So just know that, again, it's okay to question and it's okay to take your time. We encourage that. But our biggest thing, I think both of us would say, like, find community and ask questions in that community. So we are so happy that you joined us for this episode. We encourage you to leave questions, comments in the section below. We will answer them as we see them come up. And we want to also encourage you to hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss an episode coming along the way. And we will see you next time.